Good morning, everybody. Let me give you our texts before we go to the word, or before we make announcements, I should say. Okay, James 4:17, a really popular verse. James 4:17. Isaiah 5, verse 20. Isaiah 5, verse 20. Proverbs 11, verse 3. Proverbs 11, verse 3. Yes, I'm not done yet. There's one more. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 33. 1 Corinthians 15, verse 33. Okay. While you're turning there, let me just bring everyone up to speed. Kylie got back into Maine. I think it was the night before last. She's downstate, staying with my mom and my grandmother. She's got some physical therapy and stuff she has to go to down there from the surgery. Her visit to Florida was good. She didn't get to do a lot of stuff she normally would because of the back, but she's doing okay. Healing's going nicely. No problems there. So just keep her in your prayers. My wife is still down there, and my niece and my great nephew, which would be Janice's sister's daughter and grandson, flew in, I guess, a couple of days before Kylie left. And together they're going to drive from Florida to Texas so that she can, Sister Scott can see her mom and her family, especially her mom, though. And then a week from tomorrow, so not this Monday, but the next, I fly to Texas to join her. We'll briefly see her mom immediately that evening after I fly in, after I see her mom for a little bit, drive over to North Louisiana to see my grandparents, which they're not doing that well because they're advanced. I mean, they're up around 90 now. And my Nana, she's showing a little bit of signs of dementia. And she's also just had a biopsy run on something, I think, in her abdomen area. And so that's the 18th when I fly into Texas, and we go over there. We stay with an aunt and an uncle. And then she gets test results back on that biopsy the next day, on that Tuesday, the 19th, which is when I'll finally see them. We're going to eat dinner with my Uncle Mike and Aunt Jenny, which will be my mom's brother and sister-in-law, and Papa Dan and Nana, get to see them then. And then Janice and I think my niece and that great nephew are also going to ride back with us. We're driving back. Sister Scott is still down there with a car, so we're driving back. We're going to stop in North Arkansas for a couple of days, see my brother, and then drive the rest of the way into Maine. So that's next Monday when I fly out, and it won't be until the middle of the following week. So I'll miss that Sunday, which would be let's see, so it'll be 17th, it'll be the 24th. I'll be gone on the 24th. So but then I'm back. So anyway, keep us in your prayer while we're traveling, while we're driving. Keep my Nana in your prayer. So that's some prayer requests, Kylie, her, and our travels. This week has also been an eventful week up here in my family, up here in Maine. I went down, was only going to be down for a couple of days. We had the bed that we had taken down to Mom's house for Kylie to use, so she didn't have to climb stairs right after the surgery. So I had to pick that up, get that out of my mom's way. And also our boat was down there, and I brought that back. And I went out Tuesday morning, expecting back Wednesday evening, but I wound up having to stay longer because, as bad off as my Nana is down in Louisiana, my grandma up here is even worse. Mentally, she's, she sometimes gets, confused with things, but I don't think she's got any, notable dementia going on. But it's just a matter of her getting weaker and weaker. And now she's gotten to the place where she's sat so much and eaten and drunk so little that she's gotten so weak that she can't really get from her chair to the bathroom in time. And because she knows that, she eats less and drinks less, which makes it worse. And so anyway, Wednesday when I was supposed to come back, I came back down the stairs. And of course, she tries all this. She tries anyway, even though she can't. And even when there's nobody around, of course, you never know, when you're going to need to go to the bathroom, I know. But anyway, it was quite the scene. She's not in her chair. And I realized, okay, she must be in the restroom. But I don't even get out of the room before I realized, I can see the signs that something has, that she's had a mishap. And so I go around the corner into the next room, which is right outside the bathroom, and she's sitting there in a wooden chair. My mom's in the bathroom cleaning things up in there. So she evidently, it was really bad because she was in the bathroom a long time cleaning. And then she had to help, put grandma in the shower, help her get cleaned up. So I got my mom's carpet shampooer and I cleaned up the carpets in the 2 rooms. All of that precipitated a call to the doctor because this is, she had fever the night before. When I got there, she was running a fever, which Tylenol seemed to bring it down and knock it out. But all of this is signs of, further weakening. Dehydration is becoming an issue because she won't drink or eat hardly anything. So call the doctor. This is getting to a level of care that my mom can't really do. Like if she were to fall in the tub, my mom told me how tricky it was to get her in the tub, and how there were several moments when one little fall or her losing her grip and grandma would have been down in the tub on her back, and then it would have been a real scene. I mean, it's really dangerous. So they're supposed to be sending someone out to evaluate, and we're hoping they do, because if they do, then they won't be able to allow grandma to snow them about how good she's doing over the phone, because she won't tell them the truth. Mom is talking to the doctor, and they're asking about things. Mom mentions how she can't use her left arm, which she can't. She broke it back in Louisiana when we brought her up here, and she has refused to go to the doctor to let the doctor fix it. So she can keep it like right by her side like this, but she can't raise it or do anything with it, and it has no real strength. And so my mom says, yeah, I get her in the bathroom, trying to get her, over the edge of the tub on her chair, and she can't use her left arm. And grandma's in the background, I can use my arm, I can use my. But so we're hoping they do send someone out, because if they do, they'll see. And she won't be able to fool them like she can over the phone, because she's either, I don't know, she's going to have to be hospitalized to get all of her fluids and systems back like they're supposed to. But I think my grandma knows that if she leaves the house now, she's not coming back to the house. She would have to go into a nursing home. So anyway, I know some of you have been through those situations before, but that's where we are right now. So please remember to pray for my mom and my grandmother. Also pray for my sister. My sister, nothing absolutely crucial at this moment, but number one, her and her husband are trying to find another house. They sold their one and they're renting right now, trying to find a better place. And also my sister has Crohn's disease, and it really seems to be getting worse, to where the Remicade treatment that she gets every, few weeks or so doesn't seem to be keeping it in check anymore. And so that can be scary and bad. So anyway, plenty of prayer requests on my part. Share any prayer requests. I haven't seen any this morning on the thread, but share any you might have with a thread so that people can know to be praying for yours. All right, so let's go to our scriptures. James 4:17 says, therefore to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Okay. Like I said, a very popular scripture, very simple, makes sense. Isaiah 5:20 says, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. In other words, woe to those. God is not going to be happy with those who like to try to confuse what's right and what's wrong. Okay. Proverbs 11:3 says, the integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. And then finally, 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, do not be deceived. Bad company ruins good morals. Had to double check. I couldn't find my screen for a minute. Have I been talking all this time? All right. So anyway, the title of the message today is 5 Steps to Better Morality. 5 Steps to Better Morality. All right, let's pray over the lesson, and let's also pray for prayer requests. God, we love you this morning. We ask you right now to put your hand on the word and on the lesson and help it make a difference. We also ask you to put your hand on Kylie, let her keep healing and doing well. Put your hand on my wife and Kayla and Johnny as they travel from Florida to Texas. Put your hand on all the family in Texas and her mom and her sister and the situation with those grandbabies. We ask you also to put your hand on me as I travel. Put your hand on Nana with her dementia, as well as whatever may be going on with that growth in her body. We ask you right now to also put your hand on us as we travel back. Put your hand on Mom and Grandma and her advanced weakness and slow but sure decline, and the situation that's putting her and my mom in. God, give us a solution to that. Put your hand on Angela, help her to continue, make her better, God. Let the flare-ups and everything start going the other way. Put your hand on all of our families, Sister Teresa and Sister Elaine's families, her Sister Teresa and Sister Elaine's children and their grandchildren. God, provide for them, protect them. Put your hand on Sister Shaw, give her strength, God. Put your hand on Sister Rianne as she navigates next steps in her life. We ask you to touch the lesson today in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. 5 steps to better morality. There is a verse in the scripture that says, "So be perfect, even as your Father which is in heaven is perfect." Wow, that's a tall order. Be perfect just like God is perfect. No problem. I'll get right on that, right? Now, but here, as impossible as that seems, let's be clear. This verse isn't saying, hey, it'd be a good idea. Let's at least try it. No, it's emphatic. It has no qualifiers, no equivocation, no if you can, no try this. No, there's no exemptions here. So you be perfect, even like your Father in heaven is perfect. And then there's the reality that nobody is perfect, even if you do your best. So how do we do that? And how do we know when we're being successful at it and actually getting close to that high mark? Well, first, what does perfect mean? What does perfect mean? I think, by my title, we got a sense of what it means, but let's look at the Greek anyway. The word there for perfect in that verse is teleos, which means complete, specifically in moral character and behavior. So complete morally, complete in moral character, complete in moral behavior. In other words, you've got it down. You're the fully developed moral character and moral actor, right? So with that definition plugged in, that verse would read, you be completely moral in character and behavior, just like your Father in heaven is completely moral in character and behavior. Now, if you consider our first 3 texts, we had 4 verses, if you'll remember. If you consider the first 3, those verses assume that we all know exactly what being moral, or in this case, morally complete and good, that we know really what that looks like. It's like it's kind of understood. This is very clear. There's no question about it. James, in our first text, chapter 4, verse 17, says if you know how to do good, but you don't do it, it's a sin. That assumes that we know it, that we're not confused or trying to sort out something. We're not wrong about what is good. We can't be wrong about what is bad. We know it. And if we don't do that, then it's sin. Isaiah in 5 verse 20 talks about how bad it is going to be in judgment for people who act like bad is good and vice versa. But that assumes they're doing it on purpose and that they know that they're getting it mixed up. In other words, they see good, they call it bad. They see bad, they call it good. Solomon in Proverbs 11:3 divides the upright and the treacherous into two camps. And this can sound very much like the classic good guys versus the villains that we like in classic stories, where everyone knows exactly who is good because they got on white hats and they're doing good things. And everyone knows exactly who is bad because they're wearing black hats and they're doing bad things. But then we get to our fourth verse. The fourth verse says, bad company ruins good morals. Let's be very clear about what it is saying and what it is not. If you want to explain it away as in bad company influences you to ignore your morals and to do bad things, it ruins good people, that'd be one thing. The verse doesn't say that, though. Bad company ruins good morals. It doesn't cause them to start ignoring the good morals that they actually know, the way James, Isaiah, and Solomon would have us believe that everybody really knows, but they ignore it, or they overrule it, or they twist it in some way, knowing what the actual real one is. No. It doesn't say in this verse, bad company makes people start doing things they know are bad. It says bad company ruins the good morals themselves. Now, the morals are those internal guiding principles that tell us what is good and what is bad. So it's ruining the very mechanism in our heads that help us figure that stuff out. So if those mechanisms are ruined by that bad company, then how can you know to do good, James, if your idea of good is no longer right? How can you know to do good and therefore it be a sin? How can you know, Isaiah, if the morals have been ruined by bad company? How can you know then when you're calling good evil and when you're calling evil good, Isaiah? Because the thing you would measure that by has been ruined by that bad company. Notice I keep applying the verse over and over again. I'm not twisting it. I'm taking it and literally putting it in these different contexts. How can you know, Solomon, that that you are not upright and that it isn't integrity guiding you? How can you know, Solomon, if you have become the treacherous one and your path is crooked and that you're going to be destroyed, Solomon, if the very thing that tells you what is upright and is the measurement of what is integrity and is the measurement of what is crooked and what is not, what is treacherous and what is not, how can you know, Solomon, if those morals have been ruined by bad company? A lot of very bad things have been done, are being done by people who believe they're good and that they are doing good. 9/11, for example. 9/11 was done by people who believed they were doing good. And it's not just Muslims that have done that sort of thing, right? Let's be honest. I've cited this before, but I grew up in a part of the nation where there were organizations that were still, around when I was growing up, that they thought that they went to church on Sunday, they were Christians, and yet they also had that white suit with a white hood hanging in their closet. These were people who believed they were good. They were quoted Bible. They believed that by terrorizing African American people, they were doing good. So as Christians, being morally complete, it's a tough thing, but as Christians, it ought to be important to us, especially since we espouse the idea that we are representatives of a moral God and a moral way of life. We like to believe we're examples to the world of the right way to live. So we're left with this conundrum, how to be moral and how to evaluate our success in trying to be more moral or to be morally complete. How do we know we're doing it when our very mechanisms in our head could be bad, could be wrong, could be broken, could be ruined by bad company, as Paul put it? We don't know. That's what we evaluate by, and yet they may not be accurate. We may have rulers in our head that aren't, where the inch markings aren't actually accurate. Well, I submit there are 5 steps that we can get to morality through. First of all, we need to make sure we understand, number one, that we understand clearly what our principles are, those ideas that are supposed to be the morals, the good things, that we know exactly what they are and we know how they look, how they work, how they're applied. Then we need to take those. This is step number 2. So make sure we understand our principles and how they're supposed to work. Then we take them and we use them to judge in situations, day-to-day life situations, things that run into, things in conversations we're having. Use those and apply those and assess based on our moral principles. Are these things right or are they wrong? Do they line up with those morals in our head, which we know may be broken? We'll get to how we compensate for the fact they might be broken or bent or damaged. But we have to start with what we've got, right? So we understand the principles and then we actually use them. One of my frustrations with modern Christians and modern Americans is how we can compartmentalize and say we hold to morals, but then keep them out of certain areas of our lives or certain things we're doing and find ways to twist them in ways to make us feel like we're still doing good. In other words, we're not doing a whole lot of heavy assessing of right and wrong based on our morals. We're doing a whole lot of twisting and fitting to make it feel like right or wrong. It's called post. This is an important term. I want you to look it up if you have a chance. Post hoc. That's HOC. Post hoc rationalization. It's a fallacy. It's a logical fallacy where you do a thing, you hold a thing that you feel important about, you feel attached to, you feel passionate about, and instead of assessing whether or not it's right or wrong and then doing it, you do it and then you retroactively find ways to make it feel like it agrees with what you hold right or wrong. We do that a lot. So step number 1, understand exactly what our morals are and how they're supposed to work without fudging, without giving us room to wiggle. Say, I believe in honesty. This is what honesty looks like. It is saying and bearing witness to exactly what has happened and what I believe to be true, even when it's uncomfortable. That would be an example. And then number 2, assess situations of right from wrong. In other words, we start hearing people talk or we feel the impulse to say something. We assess now. One of my morals is honesty. Is this really honest? Are they really just saying what happened, or are they couching it or framing it or pushing it a certain way to make it seem better for my side or their side or whatever? So number 2, assess right from wrong. Number 3, once you have assessed, honestly, holding yourself to the highest moral you know how at that point, then you act on that knowledge, even if it costs you something. So number one, make sure you understand what your principles are and how they work and look. Number two, assess whether these actions and conversations that are happening around you and that you're taking part in are in fact right or wrong. Number three, once you've made an evaluation using those morals and principles, applied it to the thing, whatever you found, now you act on it and apply it to you and change your actions, even if it's going to cost you something, if it's going to cost you friends, if it's going to cost you money, even if it's going to cost you time. Number four, admit to yourself that you are acting on your best knowledge, but that doesn't mean it's perfect knowledge. In other words, admit you may not know it all, and look back at steps 1, 2, and 3 and see where you might have gotten it wrong. Go back to step 1 and say, these were my principles. This is how I believe they would work. Step 2, I encountered this situation and I tried to apply them. I assessed the situation. This is what my principles told me about it. And then step 3, I applied them. And now, what does the outcome look like? Did it work out? Did it actually achieve a higher moral goal? Did it actually work for the good, or did it work for just my good? Or did it how did that process work? Now, one more step. So step number 1, make sure you understand what your principles are and how they work and look. Number 2, assess when you come to a particular moment, an action, or it's a conversation, assess how whether or not that's right or wrong using the principles that you covered in step 1. Step 3, apply the knowledge that the assessment gives you and change your behavior or stand up against a behavior or a conversation. And then number 4, take the data you get from that and measure everything and how it worked. And finally, step 5, reevaluate the principles in step 1. Ask yourself if they really worked the way you thought they were supposed to work. If they are, in fact, good enough, so possibly let me give you an example. I mentioned the moral principle of honesty, right? So let's go through a scenario where we apply honesty and we get to step 5 and we reevaluate our notion of honesty and start over again. Step number 1, I understand that one of my moral principles is honesty. And I believe that whenever I am in a situation and people are talking and I am talking, that honesty means we will say exactly what we think. Sounds good so far. Step number 2, I'm in a situation, I'm hearing a conversation. Someone is saying horrible things about someone, repeating something they heard about another person. They absolutely believe it to be true. So therefore, they're meeting my understanding of honesty. Number 3, it's time to act on that knowledge. Well, since they are saying what they believe and they're not violating honesty, my understanding of honesty, then it's okay to continue in this conversation and continue to hang out with this person who's doing this. Step number 4. Now, okay, so I have clarified my understanding of honesty, that it is basically someone is honest when they say exactly what they think. Number 2, I encountered someone repeating what they had heard about someone else, and they really believed it. So therefore, according to my idea of honesty, they're being honest. Number 3, because of that, that means that they're moral people. So it's okay for me to continue in the conversation and to continue to hang out with them. Number 4, now I have to admit that I'm acting on my best understanding of honesty, which means there may be better definitions of honesty that I'm not considering. And when I look back at that, I really know that repeating what someone else has said about someone may not be true, even if the person really believes it. And it did wind up causing lots of hurt and damage to someone that was unjustified. And now we get to step 5, and I have to reevaluate the principle of honesty, my idea of honesty. And when I reevaluate my idea of honesty, which so far was just believing what you're saying, which this person who was repeating gossip, they totally believed it. But now I realize that is not good enough. That my original idea of honesty is not up to the task of producing complete moral character in me and expecting it out of others. So all of a sudden, now I have to reevaluate that principle. Is it enough to just say what I think? Or does there need to be a consideration of whether or not something is accurate in there? So maybe honesty isn't just saying what you really think, but honesty is not only being willing to say what you think, but also to really evaluate what I think and whether it's or not it's true before I act on it or say it. And now that I have reevaluated that principle in step 5, guess what it's time to do? Now it's time to start all the way back over. Now, next time I'm in a conversation, I'm going to have a new understanding of honesty because I've started back at step 1 and I've taken that notion of honesty not only needs to be true with what's in your heart, but also true as far as what may be accurate and careful. Now that's been added to my idea of honesty, and that's my new understanding of how it works from step 1. Now, when I encounter a conversation where someone's talking about someone else and repeating what they heard, and they really believe it, I'm going to start assessing, okay, my idea of honesty is not just that they say what they think, but they say what they've checked and are sure is accurate and okay. And now that I'm assessing, now I have to act differently in step 3. Now I've got to stand up to this person now. Now I may have to distance myself if when I confront them, they double down. And then we get to step 4 again, and we reevaluate, the consequences and what happened and our knowledge and so on. So step 1, understand your principles and how they work. Step 2, assess using those principles what is right and wrong in certain situations in life. Number 3, act on the knowledge the assessment gives you, even if it cost you something. Step 4, look back at what has just happened, admitting you may not have all the truth and knowledge, that you're not the be all end all of what is known. Evaluate it, measure it, see if it's feeling like it was really true. Using that evaluation, now reevaluate the very principles yourself. Step 5, re-examine all that, and then start over back at step 1 and do this over and over again the rest of your life. This, I believe, friends, will not only make you feel like you're a good person simply because you're checking particular boxes, you're hanging out with particular kinds of people, you dress in particular kinds of clothes on Sundays. But this, brothers and sisters, I believe, is a process, not just a panacea, not just an allegiance to a particular creed or belief system that makes us feel like we're good because we're hanging out with clean people, but it's a process by which we can not only know whether or not we're achieving moral perfection, integrity, but also how to get closer. I love you, and we will see you next Sunday. Take care of yourself. It's been some beautiful weather outside. I went back to work yesterday doing that cemetery project with Professor Siebold. My little bit of time that I was away, playing and with family outside some, I didn't get sunburn at all. But yesterday I got sunburnt back of my neck and down one side here because I was standing in one direction facing west, taking information down on these headstones, and the sun's hitting me on this one side. I guess this time of the year, the sun's more in the southern hemisphere, which makes sense. I guess it makes sense. I don't know. This is the time when the Earth's supposed to be tilted toward the sun, but we're still close to the north. So anyway, the side of me facing south got it good. So I I came home and I had a late lunch because I worked till 2. And I said, well, I've got time to take a nap. And I couldn't. I mean, it was cool in my room. It was nice in my room. And I felt kind of cool on one part of my body, and the other part was hot. I said, man, why can't I sleep? Well, that was why. But anyway, it's still been some wonderful days. Just remember sunscreen, unlike me, and maybe some bug spray because, yeah, the bugs came around. Fortunately, I had put that on, and it kept them mostly at bay. But anyway, I love you. We'll see you next Sunday. Take care.